10 months after the apocalypse, a man named Lincoln has lost everything and everyone he knew. He had an entire life, the perfect family, the perfect house, the perfect job, the perfect wife, and the most amazing children, but nothing lasts forever. Neither does the world before. When everything ended, Lincoln made a promise to himself that he would find his purpose in whatever world is left. But after almost 6 years, he's still trying to find his purpose in this world gone mad. Flashback to 15 years ago. We see a kid riding a bike in a subdivision. As we see him pass by a house, we see Lincoln, a pregnant Haley, James and his wife Angela, and his little 3-year-old son Isaac is hugging Lincoln, and he's crying and says, "Please don't go, Uncle Lincoln. Maybe we can just move down to Kingstonville with you." James says, "Son, it's called Washington, and Uncle Lincoln has to move. He's been offered an incredible job down there, dealing with people in prison." Isaac says, "So you're dealing with the bad guys, Uncle Lincoln?" Lincoln gives little Isaac back to Angela and tells him, "Yeah, it's something I've always wanted to pursue, and I finally have the chance." James says, "Yep, you always did look for trouble, my big bro." Lincoln tells Isaac that he loves him, and Angela says, "Well, I wish you all the best of luck." Isaac still looks upset, and Lincoln says, "Hey, don't worry. We might be moving, but we'll always come back and visit." James says, "Well, the door is always open for you, big bro." Lincoln says, "Thank you, brother." And Haley says, "Babe, we're gonna miss our flight." Lincoln says, "Okay, I love you guys." And they all hug, and they then walk out to their car and drive away. We see them driving away, and Haley is slightly crying, and Lincoln says, "You okay?" Haley says, "Yeah, it's just, I thought I was ready to leave all this behind, but now it's actually happening. It's always hard to say goodbye to our hometown." Lincoln says, "Hey, it's alright, babe. We're still gonna see them all the time. Ashley said she's gonna be taking a trip down there nearby the holiday season anyway, so we'll be fine." Haley looks upset, and Lincoln says, "Oh, just think about it. The new kitchen at the house, the beautiful view of the city from the balcony." Haley says, "Yeah, there's a lot of good there." Lincoln says, "And just think about it. In a few more months, it's going to be 3 of us." Lincoln can tell she's still sad, and Lincoln says, "You know what I always do when I'm feeling down?" Haley looks at him, and Lincoln says, "Anything good. Something in front of you that's a sign of hope. What do you see?" Haley looks at the window, and she sees a robin flying by, and she smiles, and they both see it fly away. And Lincoln says, "See? There's always hope. You just gotta look for it. We're gonna be okay. I promise." And as they keep driving towards the airport, we see them getting into a plane. As we see them lifting off, we see the plane flying off into the sunset as they begin a new journey. As we see a smile on Lincoln's face, we then fade into the current timeline. Back in Kingstonville, we see the look of fear on Lincoln's face. We see the sign written in blood, "Killer," behind you. We see Lincoln looks pissed and a bit nervous by seeing this, and Lincoln turns to his people and says, "We have a killer among us." Amelia then runs up to this and says, "Anybody see who did it?" But everyone else says that they didn't. Lincoln says, "All right, I want everyone to go home and lock their doors. We'll handle this. We will handle this. Sydney, Amelia, Luke, I want you guys to figure out who did this." Luke says, "I'll start with Jim." Amelia says, "You really think he's a suspect behind those bars?" Luke says, "I guess we'll find out. He caused hell the other night. Maybe he's got more of his little buddies doing his dirty work." Amelia says, "I'll come with you. Make sure everything goes okay." Lincoln says, "All right, we don't need any more people getting killed around here. Be safe, all of you." As we see Lincoln then looks back at the sign written in blood and says, "Not again. Never again." We open on a rainy night. We see Tom, Miles, Roger, Rivers, and Snoop running through the woods as fast as they can. As we see a group of deadheads are running not too far behind them. Tom and them stop as they're out of breath, and Tom says, "We gotta be a few miles out away from the motel now." Rivers looks back and sees the dead running from a distance and says, "Where the hell do we go?" Tom then looks at an old sign covered in moss and vines, where we then see it says, "Suburban Estates, your next ride." Tom has a small smile on his face and says, "I know just the place." As they keep running through the woods, and they all follow Tom. We see them all hop over the wall as they make it inside, and they all take a second to catch their breath. And Tom and the others then look around as we see a post-apocalyptic suburban estates. Miles says, "Holy shit." Tom says, "Well, it's a long time no see, Wesley's shithole." River says, "What is this place?" Tom says, "At the time, this was the only safe haven worth a shit back in the early days of the outbreak. Now it's just a wasteland world." River says, "Boy, how things change, huh?" Tom is about to say something, but then we hear the deadheads are all banging up against the gate from outside, and Tom sees the gate moving and says, "Everyone, back up now." The gate falls, and Tom says, "Run!" As they all run through the streets trying to get to safety, Tom then sees Wesley's old house from a distance and says, "There, inside, go!" They all run in and lock the door as we see them trap themselves in with runners surrounding the house and filling the streets. Tom looks stressed and says, "Well, safe to say, we are officially fucked." As they all look at each other in fear. Back with Dave, we see him speeding down the road as we see apostles running down a trail in the woods as fast as they can, trying to get away. Dave drives as fast as he can. He then runs over one of them and the blood goes all over the windshield. He says, "One bitch." He runs over two more and says, "Two bitches. Three bitches." And he runs over the last one and we hear the sound of his bones being crushed over the windshield. As Dave stops the truck and gets out, he walks up to the last one who's suffering, and he removes his mask from him and says, "It sucks, don't it? The weight of blood. My enemy sees blood before they see me." And he shoots the apostle in the head and says, "Run from that, you faceless prick." As he walks back to the truck and drives away. Back at Suburban Estates, we see Miles kills 2 deadheads with his sword. Rivers walks up to him and says, "Nothing downstairs." She looks at the 2 deadheads that Miles killed and says, "I presume not so peaceful upstairs?" Miles says, "Yeah, the fuckers jumped me. You know, you spend so long worrying about what kind of people you're gonna face every time you're out here. But you always forget about the reanimated corpses that are trying to eat you." Rivers says, "Yeah, well, runners? That's a big fuck no for me." Miles says, "Well, alright. I'll go guard the door." River says, "Alright," as he walks off. Rivers then walks into an office room where we see Tom sitting at a big desk, and Tom is wearing a cowboy hat, and he says, "Damn, I don't know how country artists did this shit back in the day." Rivers sees a big old hat collection and says, "Who the hell had all this shit?" Tom says, "Wesley, that's who." River says, "Wesley?" Tom says, "Yeah, he was our old leader. He had all the guns he wanted, all the drinks he wanted, he had all the hats he wanted. Oh man, the old fucker. God bless his cold-ass soul, but man, he did have one killer setup in here, I must say." River says, "How'd he die?" Tom says, "Luke killed him. The guy was a coward. And you know what they say. Sometimes the cowards are the more dangerous than the ones that aren't." River says, "And that's how Lincoln became leader, I presume?" Tom says, "After the guy tried to take him out. Pretty much, yeah." River says, "Well, I sure am learning a lot about Lincoln on this trip." Tom says, "Lincoln's a good guy. Yeah, maybe he shouldn't have lied about his brother, but I get it. He didn't want his brother dead, and he couldn't come to terms with killing his brother. But he didn't want the community on edge. After everything we lost over the years, I understand why he wanted his people to feel like they were safe. Hopefully, Dave will understand that. I hope." River says, "Yeah, Dave's probably wondering where the hell we are." Tom says, "Well, walkies are out of juice, so we gotta figure something out." River says, "You got any ideas?" Tom says, "I don't know, I really don't, but these things literally run fucking at you." River says, "Well, as long as they see food, they're gonna sprint. We need a way to get past them somehow, but make it to where they're just walking, not running." And as Tom looks at her, he says, "I think I might have an idea." Tom and Rivers walk downstairs to Roger, Miles, and Snoop. Tom looks at them and says, "There's one thing we could do to get ourselves out of here. Although you might need to be a little bit open-minded on this one." And as they all look at Tom, we see them dragging the 2 dead bodies into the living room floor. Miles says, "Okay, what do we do here again?" Tom says, "It's an old trick Lincoln and I did back in the old days. It smells like a baboon's ass, but it still works pretty damn good, bud." Miles says, "This already sounds fucked." Tom says, "Alright, Rivers, you grab some blankets, long sleeve shirts, anything you can find from the bedrooms. We can use those to get the guts all over us." Miles says, excuse me? Is this exactly safe?" Tom says, "Hell no, but it works, and either it's this or fighting every last one of those runners." Miles takes his sword and says, "Alright, I'm trusting you on this, Tom." He then starts cutting open the deadhead's stomach as the guts pour out. River says, "Alright, I found some extra clothes, although these are kind of fucked looking." Tom says, "It'll work just fine. Now everyone suit up. Make sure it doesn't touch your face whatsoever. You may get infected if you do. And make sure you put on a good amount of this stuff." Roger then looks out the window and sees the herd filling the streets. Roger says, "Guys, more of them are filling the streets." Tom says, "Alright, come on. We see they're all covered in guts, and then Tom says, "Alright, looks like we're ready for go." River says, hold on there a sec, Ginger. What about him? We see Snoop, and Tom says, "Ah, Dave might have been right. Should have kept his ass at home." River says, "Well, we can't leave him here." Tom then looks at him and says, You think this shit works on dogs?" We cut to Snoop wrapped in a guts-covered blanket, and Tom says, "All right, we all ready?" River has Snoop under her gut poncho, and Tom is in front, and he says, "All right." Tom then slowly opens the door as the deadheads flood into the house. Back in Kingstonville, we see Jim sitting in his cell as we hear the door open. We see it's Luke and Amelia, and Jim laughs and says, "What do you jagoffs want now?" Luke says, "There's been a murder within our walls almost 10 minutes ago." "You know anything about that?" Jim says, "How would I? I've been here, you dipshit." Luke enters the cell, and then he punches him in the face as we see Jim fall, and Luke pulls out his gun and says, "All right, let's do this the hard way then. Do you have anything to do with that murder out there? Did one of your little goons do it? Huh?" Jim wipes his bloody nose and says, "No, I didn't kill anybody. Now, are we done here, soldier?" Luke puts his gun away and says, "Okay." And he decides to walk out before things get worse. Amelia looks back at him, and as Luke walks out, Amelia says, "I can tell it's not you, but a little word of advice? Take that mouth of yours elsewhere. It'll go a long way for you, trust me," as she walks out of the room. Lincoln runs up to Sydney and says, "Hey, you find anything?" Sydney says, "No, nothing. Whoever they are covered up their tracks pretty good." Lincoln says, "Well, we can't keep this up. Whoever it is, they're playing the role good. I say we stop here for tonight. We begin the search early in the morning, all right?" Sydney says, "Works for me." Luke and Amelia walk up to them, and Luke says, "Well, as expected, you didn't say shit." Lincoln asks, "Why is there blood on your hand?" Luke says, "He pissed me off." Lincoln says, "I know the feeling dealing with that prick." Luke says, "I'm gonna keep looking. Even if it ain't him, we'll find out who this killer is soon enough." Lincoln says, "Well, I'm going home for the night. We'll continue this search tomorrow." Luke says, "You got it, boss. I'll let you know if anything else turns up." Lincoln says, "All right. Good night, guys. Y'all have a good one." As they all go their separate ways, we see Amelia and Luke walking the streets, and she says, "You okay?" Luke says, "Yeah. But I'll tell you one thing. Whoever's doing this to us, there'll be brains out on the floor by the time I'm done with them." Amelia says, "Well, do you have any leads?" Luke says, "Well, after talking to Jim, he doesn't seem to know anything about it." Amelia says, "Well, there's a shocker." Luke says, "He could be lying. He could be. But I don't feel like it's that easy. I feel like there's someone in here. I feel like it's someone we wouldn't expect. Someone that's been right in front of us this whole time." Amelia says, "Well, whoever it is, they'll be found soon enough." As we see them keep walking, we see Lincoln walking up to a house, and he knocks on the door, and Nathan answers. "Hey, Lincoln, what's up?" Lincoln says, "Sorry about the time. Mind if I come in?" Nathan says, "Oh, sure, man. Come on in." Lincoln takes a seat and says, "Now, I wanted to talk to you about something." Nathan says, "Oh, yeah? What's up?" Lincoln says, "Well, someone was murdered in the street about 10 to 15 minutes ago." Nathan looks shocked and says, "Jesus, man. Did you see who did it?" Lincoln says, "No, that's what I'm trying to figure out." Nathan then looks a bit upset and says, "Wait, do you think I did it?" Lincoln says, "No, I don't. But someone did. And this is no offense to you, but you people have only been here for a few days now. So even though I know you're not guilty, I have a lot of people out there that may think that." Nathan looks at him and says, "Dave told me you used to be a prison guard. They used to do this kind of stuff back in the day. So just go on and ask me." Lincoln says, "I don't want to believe it's you, but I can't be sure anymore. Christ, my own brother did the same thing all that time ago. I trusted him more than anyone. All I'm saying here is that there's someone in this place that's trying to fuck with us. Again. And I'm gonna find them. Nathan says, well, it's not me. Or Vivian. I promise you that. Lincoln says, alright. I'm gonna take your word on that, okay? I need some people around here that I can trust. Hopefully you're one that I can count on for that. Nathan says, of course. And Lincoln walks out. As we see him walking the streets, we see the sun coming up. Back with Dave. We see him drive back to the motel. He gets out of the truck and searches through a few of the rooms, looking worried, as he sees they're not there. He then gets back into his truck and drives off to go find them. We see him driving as we see there's an apostle up ahead laying down on the side of the road. Dave stops the truck and gets out with his gun up. He walks over to this apostle and removes its mask from its face and sees he's bleeding out and says, "Does it hurt?" The apostle doesn't answer and Dave says, "I hope it does. I'm looking for my friends. I'm assuming you're looking for them too. Unfortunately, only one person here is going to get the chance to find them." The apostle still doesn't speak, and Dave says, alright, you're kind of boring me. And he shoots him and says, now fuck off, I got work to do. He gets back in his truck and drives away, but as he starts driving away, he sees a sign that says, Suburban Estates, 3 miles east, and says, bingo. Back at Suburban Estates, we see them walking through the herd as they're walking across, and Tom notices some of the dead are getting really close to Rivers and Snoop, and he looks worried. As Roger looks at Tom, he is signaling Rivers to take a left. As they keep moving through, we notice some of the deadheads are moving kind of different, and Tom picks up on it, and he whispers to them, "The deadheads might be picking up on this." Roger says, "You sure?" Tom says, "No. Something just doesn't feel right, man." As a deadhead is approaching Roger, and Tom says, "Alright, we can cut through." But then a deadhead bites Roger on his arm and he screams out in pain. Tom and Miles pull out their knives as the dead start trying to eat them, and they all kill one after another as they fight their way through. Miles takes Roger and saves him from getting eaten, as Tom says, "Run!" As Tom and the others are running through, we see there's no way out. Tom says, "Fuck!" River sees a house up ahead and says, "There, go, come on." We see them all run into one of the houses. Miles drags a desk against the door and makes sure the reanimated corpses don't get in. Tom is shaking as he's getting his belt off, and he puts it on Roger's arm and says, "Alright, buddy, I'm gonna need you to hang on for me, okay? Just hang on." Roger says, No, please don't waste your time on me. Please, just find a way out of this. Get back to Dave and Kezia. Tom says, "We will, with you by our side. You understand?" Tom says, "Miles, I'm gonna need you to hold him down, okay?" Miles says, "Yes, sir." As they hold Roger down, Tom pulls out his knife and says, "I'm sorry, bud." As he cuts his hand off and as Roger screams out in pain. We see the sunrise. As we see Roger is passed out on the couch, and Rivers walks up to Tom and says, "Hey, you okay in there?" Tom says, "Well, shit, I think I'm good now." Rivers says, "I'm sorry you had to do that, but he's gonna be okay. I know it." Tom says, "Damn right he is." And he looks out the window as he sees, out of nowhere, a big light outside the house and says, "We all are." As we see Dave drives in and plows through several of the dead. He drives up to the house and yells from the outside, "Come on, everyone in the truck!" They all act fast. Miles grabs Roger. Rivers grabs Snoop as they all open the door, and Tom and Dave kill several deadheads to get to each other. Dave sees Miles with Roger in his arms and says, "Fuck!" Miles says, "It's okay, he got bit. I had to chop it off." and Dave sees the rest of the herd running down the street towards them, and everyone sprints to the truck, and once they're all in, Dave says, "All right, everyone hang on." As Dave goes in reverse and busts through the main gate of Suburban Estates, as they all drive away, barely with their lives. Back in Kingstonville, we see the sun coming up, as we see Lincoln walks up to another house, and he knocks at the door. We see Bruce opens the door and says, "Hey, Lincoln." Lincoln says, "Mind if I come in?" Bruce says, "Sure, come on in." They walk in, and Lincoln says, "So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this murder that happened last night." Bruce says, "Yeah, I heard about that. Some scary shit. Want a beer?" Lincoln says, "Nah, I'll have a water." And Bruce says, "Yeah, some things get pretty ugly out there, Lincoln. The 1 second it's paradise, the next minute we're back to shit like this. The 1 second it's paradise, and the next minute we're back to the kind of shit like your brother was doing." Lincoln says, "Yeah, well, I just figured I'd check in." Bruce says, "Hey, wait, I want to show you something." They walk out into the backyard, and he shows Lincoln his new barbecue he got, and says, "Check this out. I'm planning a big old grill out when the whole thing passes, so if you want, you can invite the rest of your people and we can all grill out sometime." Lincoln says, "That's sick. We will definitely make a night for that, Bruce." And Bruce says, "Perfect." Lincoln says, "Well, I should get going." Bruce says, "Well, give me an update when you know more about this psycho thing." Lincoln says, "Will do, Bruce," as we see him walk away. We see Lincoln entering the armory, looking to make sure all the weapons have been accounted for, and he asks the guard named Felix, "You see anything weird here last night? Anything at all that maybe pointed us to some sort of resolution to this?" Felix says, "No. After and before the murder, everything was quiet in here." And Lincoln says, "All right, thanks, Felix." We see him looking through old buildings, just trying to find anything, but there's no luck. We then hear someone say, "Lincoln?" Lincoln is startled and says, "Oh, Jesus Christ, he scared the shit out of me." Sidney says, "Sorry, boss. You find any kind of evidence?" Lincoln says, "No, nothing. Nothing's been stolen, nothing out of the ordinary. Whoever did this, they thought this through very well." Sidney says, "Well, we'll keep looking. You okay, boss?" Lincoln says, "Yeah, I feel like I'm doing this all wrong." Sidney says, "What?" Lincoln says, "I don't know, I let people into my walls again that I clearly didn't see they were bad. I keep losing people every time I turn the corner. When does it end?" Sidney says, "I'm sorry to tell you this, boss, but I don't think it just ends. I think it's just something we gotta live with." Lincoln says, "Sometimes I just think that maybe I should have just died in those first 10 months out on my own. Maybe die of starvation or something of the matter. Maybe that would have made everything better for everyone that had a different leader." Sidney says, "Hey, you cut that shit out right now. You are the best damn leader I know. You and Tom helped me when I was at my lowest, and I like to think that's why we're here. And if you didn't find me, I probably would have died alone too. We are all here because you gave us that strength to keep going. I wanted to give up, but you didn't let me. And I found my sister, and you helped Tom look for Billy. You did all these things for strangers you never even met before. Lincoln, if it wasn't for you, I don't know where we'd be right now. I really don't." Lincoln says, "Thanks, Sidney." And as he hugs her, they both walk out and go their separate ways. We see Lincoln walking out into the graveyard of Kingstonville as he walks up to Paul's grave, and he looks upset at all the lives that were lost for this place. As he sits there in silence, we see Zach walks up to Lincoln and says, "Mr. West?" Lincoln turns around and says, "Hey kid, what are you doing out here?" Zach says, "I hate to do this to you, but patrols were just doing a sweep outside the walls, and they were supposed to come back over an hour ago. I tried reaching them over the walkie, but there's no sign of them." Lincoln says, "Shit. Alright, I'll go check it out." Zach says, "Mind if I come?" Lincoln says, "Why?" Zach says, "I'd like to get more experience out there. And I hear you're the best of the best, so..." Lincoln says, "Alright, meet me down at the gate in about 5. Zach says, "Sure thing." We then see an older gentleman walking up to Lincoln. The man says, Mr. West? Lincoln says, yes. The man walks up to him and says, I don't mean to bother you, but I wanted to talk to you for a second. Now my son, Jim, was arrested the other day, and I wanted to... Lincoln cuts him off and says, you what? You came here to judge me? Well, I don't want to hear it anymore. Your son was a danger to us all, and he almost got himself killed because of it. And the man says, I have no idea why he did it. We both aren't responsible for it. But I'll tell you this right now. And he approaches Lincoln. Lincoln pulls out a knife out of his jacket, and the man laughs a little bit and says, I was gonna say thank you. Lincoln looks shocked, and the man walks up to him and pats him on the shoulder and says, my son made a mistake, and you corrected it. And I'm grateful for that. People may say you did the wrong thing around here and that you're not the leader that we need, but I think we do. I think you're a very good leader. And even if the people don't believe it right now, eventually they will. And Lincoln says, well, thank you. And the old man starts walking away, and he turns around and says, until you see that white light into the next world, you fight for every day, Mr. West. Lincoln has a small smile on his face. Lincoln goes home, and Haley is with Billy. As she says, hey babe. Lincoln says, hey, there's been an incident with the patrols. Me and Zach are going out there to make sure they're all okay. Haley says, what? The patrols didn't come back? Lincoln says, no, but I gotta go out there. We can't face losing any more people around here. Haley says, no, I get it, but I'm coming with you. Lincoln says, no, baby, no, not you too. I can't have you risking your life for this. Haley says, there's no time to argue. I'm bringing Billy to Catherine's for a playdate today anyway. I'm not just sitting in the house alone thinking about whether or not you're going to be dead or alive. I'm coming with you. End of discussion. And Lincoln says, okay. Before they go, we see Lincoln walk out on his porch as he turns on a walkie and says, Tom, if you can hear me, I hope things are going okay out there. You guys doing all right? And there's no response, and Lincoln says, Tom, if you hear me, brother, please respond. Hearing your voice would actually really help me right now. And unfortunately, there's no signal. And Lincoln says, oh, I hope you're okay, brother. As we zoom out of the balcony, Lincoln looks sad that he can't get to Tom. We see Lincoln get on his bike as Sydney, Luke, and Zach walk up to his driveway, and Zach says, you ready? Lincoln says, yeah, Haley's coming with us. Luke says, so am I. Sydney says, you four go. I'll keep this place safe until you're back. Lincoln says, Luke, you don't have to. Luke says, you're right, I don't have to. I want to. Lincoln says, fine. Well, everyone, let's go. As Haley, Luke, and Zach get in the truck, and Lincoln starts his bike as they all ride out of Kingstonville together. Back with Tom and Dave's group. We see it's the daytime now, and we see they've been driving for a while. Tom says, how much further to the warehouse? Dave says, only about 5 more miles. Miles says, what? Dave says, no, not you, Miles, just... Anyway, we're getting close, alright? That's the point. They then pass a sign that says, welcome to Washington, D.C. And Dave says, damn it. Guys, we're approaching another shithole. As they see from a distance a burned out Washington, D.C. The truck starts slowing down and Dave says, shit fuck. Tom says, what's wrong? Dave says, we're out of gas. Seems awfully ironic that we run out of gas right in front of this crazy bitch's home. Even beyond the grave, Lindsay's still fucking with us. River says, what? Now I gotta carry this one-armed bastard along with us? Sorry, too soon? Dave says, alright, everyone relax. There's more fuel in the back. Luckily, Tom packed this thing up good. Tom says, alright, well thanks for volunteering to refuel the truck for us, bud. Dave says, no, I came up with the idea. It's your truck, you fill it up. Tom says, no can do, amigo. Besides, I gotta take a leak. Dave says, unbelievable. We see Rivers gets out to stretch her legs, and we see she takes a look at Washington from a distance, and Tom walks up to her and says, some crazy shit, huh? Tom says, we won a lot of fights, this one being our hardest though. River says, you okay now? Tom says, yeah, just stressful day, that's all. River says, well, I'm ready for whatever other crazy adventures we go on. Tom says, yeah. We then see Snoop walk up to both of them, and Tom says, but the second I get home, I'm washing that stinky motherfucker. As we see them both share a laugh. We see a man walking in a suit in a field. We can clearly see this man hasn't eaten in a long time. We focus on his eyes, and then we slowly transition to his dead eyes, as he is now a walking dead. 2 miles outside of the walls of Kingstonville, he walks into the field, but then suddenly, a machete goes right through the other side of his head, as we see Lincoln with his machete covered in blood. He looks at the deadhead that he just killed and says, whatever you are now, looks like you made poor decisions. He pulls out his walkie and says, patrols, report. We don't hear a response, and he says, patrols, this is Lincoln West. We've had a murder within our walls. If you can hear me, I'm advising you all to go home till we know what we're dealing with. I repeat, go home till we know what we're dealing with. Over. He then spots a church up ahead and starts walking towards it. He walks up to the church, the same one he went to during the Viper War, and he enters it. He slowly walks in and sits down in one of the pews. He puts his machete down and he sits there, and he looks up at the father and says, well, it's been a few years. It'll probably be a few more when I come back, but I don't know. You've answered my prayers. I wanted my family in a safe place. You answered. So whatever happens next, I need you to continue with your promise and protect my family at all costs. I won't ask for anything else. Just make sure they get out alive. We then see 2 other deadheads are walking up to him in the church, and he's about to take care of them. But then we see Haley comes up behind them and takes them out and says, anything? Lincoln says, no, there's no sign of them. Haley says, okay, come on, babe. And as Lincoln and Haley walk out on the road, we see Zach and Luke walk up to them, and Luke says, anything? Lincoln says, no, this is getting weird. This is usually the spot. Luke says, I'm sure we'll find them. They gotta be somewhere around here. Lincoln says, or they're dead already. Luke says, well, the only way to find out is to keep moving. Now come on. Lincoln and Haley get on the bike together as they keep driving along. We see them driving, and they then see a trail of blood on the road, as we see Lincoln signaling them to pull over. They all get out as Haley pulls out her gun, and they then see one of the patrols laying up against a car, bleeding out. And Lincoln says, shit, that's Keith. Lincoln and Haley walk up to him, and Lincoln says, Keith, oh my god, what the hell happened here? Keith is spitting out blood and says, the apostles. We were coming back from a patrol. They ran us off the roads. Lincoln asks, where the hell is Tony and Joe? Keith says, I don't know. They're still out here. They're still out here. But then Keith slips away, and Lincoln and the others look sad, and Lincoln puts his machete slowly through his head so he doesn't turn. And Lincoln says, all right, we split up into teams. We'll cover more ground that way. Haley, you go with Luke. Go west. Me and Zach will take east. Haley says, okay, just be careful, okay? Lincoln says, we will. And as they kiss, we focus on them, holding hands, as they then let go, and the groups go their separate ways.